today's video, we are covering the first house of astrology. The houses of astrology. Your birth chart is 360-degree circle, and it's divided into 12 sections called houses. The houses are based on the 24-hour Earth axis, unlike the signs, which are based on the sun's yearly rotation. The 12 sections represent specific parts of your life. So you'll start at the point of origin, which is where your rising sign is, or your ascendant, and that's the first house. Then you move counterclockwise. Imagine that you're on a journey, and the signs are representing how you go on this journey. The points and planets are how you express yourself on this journey, and the houses are where it's going to be playing out, where the energy will be focused. In this Queerstrology video series, I'm going to concentrate on the where, the houses, and I will cover the how, which is the signs, as well as the expressions, which is the points and planets in each of the houses, even if that house is empty in your chart. The first house is ruled by Aries and its planet Mars. There are a few things that are specific to the first house. It's never empty, as it's home to your rising sign or your ascending sign, your point of origin, where your chart begins. However, an empty house doesn't indicate anything negative. Think of your chart as a baseline. Everyone has 12 houses. How they fall and in which sign is different. So when a point falls inside a particular house, then it draws more focus. And when we identify what those points' energy is like, as an example, Mercury is communication. So you can see what kind of influences it has on your sign and house. There's something called a stellium, and that indicates 3 or more points in a single house or a single sign. Think of these points as teammates that work well together and create more emphasis on the aspect of your life. Aries is the ruler of the first house, which gives it some of its attitude. But only Aries risings have Aries ruling their first house, because your rising sign is what rules your first house, and it also rules your entire natal chart. Your ascending, or ASC as it's referred to, is kind of like the CEO of your chart. The rest of the houses or departments have their own managers, but they all answer to the ASC. Your rising sign is based on which constellation was on the horizon at the time of your birth, and it changes every 2 hours or so, so that's the need for your exact birth time. Houses of astrology are where things play out in your life. The first house of astrology is known as the house of self. This is all about you and the time for you to absorb and learn. The energy of placements in this house are going to bring focus to you. So now that we know more about the where, the house, let's dive into the how, which is your signs, and how you express it, which is your placements. If you have sun in your first house, you're gonna have a presence and you're gonna be aware of it. But because it's in the first house of self, you may feel a little overwhelmed and insecure about your image. You will thrive in being thoughtful leader if you can stop worrying about what others think about you. If you have moon in the first house, how many times have you heard, "You're so emotional"? Well, yeah, homie, my moon is in the first house. I mean, literally emotions on your sleeve. You're sympathetic towards other folks, so watch not to let those emotions drown out your logic. If you have Mercury, you are intelligent and realistic. You're a master problem solver, but you don't like being the star because that brings some restriction to it. You prefer and would rather have the freedom to continue to learn. If you have Venus in your first house, ooh la la, youthful and loving energy that comes off as available but carefree. Careful of the tendency to be passive aggressive to maintain your connections. For Mars, it's in its domain in the first house, giving it additional energy. This placement is very reactive and energized. Ever heard the phrase, "You've got a lot of energy"? They tend to come off aggressive with their independent attitude. If you have this placement, if you're gonna compete, you know you are, pick healthy battles. If you have Jupiter in the first house, this radiates fun. You're down to try anything once, possibly twice if it didn't hurt too bad the first time. You are all about mind over matter, but don't forget what else matters. You see what I did there? On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Saturn in the first house, and this is resting bitch face, but with the best smiles. The placement can make you a bit judgmental, but don't hold your feelings of guilt in. You gotta find that outlet. If there's Neptune in your first house, this is gonna focus on your sensitivity and your charm. You're popular and you can feel overwhelmed by the attention sometimes. If you have Uranus in the first house, this is the, hi, I'm free and I will remain as such, and you can kindly F off otherwise. You want to change the world, but in your own unique way. With Pluto in your first house, you can come off as intimidating. It's your intense need for privacy, so you may not always have receipts for everything. Keep that in mind. Now, say we take those expressions that we just discussed there, the points and planets, and where, which is in the first house, that's the expression of how it plays out. And now we take the how, which is the signs. This is how it'll be expressed. To do this, we look for the sign that rules your house. And to find the ruler of your house, you look at the outer ring of your natal chart. Really quick sidebar here. On astrocharts.com, the link is in my bio, get your natal chart. It defaults to the tropical or Western style astrology, which is the 30-degree fixed signs, and the houses vary in degree. Now, sidereal, or the Eastern style of astrology, it works with 30-degree fixed signs and houses, and you can adjust it in the settings of astrocharts. So let's get back to covering your rising sign. This is not only the ruler of your first house, but the ruler of your chart. If you happen to have Aries, which is the ruler of the first house in general. If you have Aries in your first house, you're gonna come off as quick, fiery, brave, independent. Now, they tend to be focused on their own plans. It can be difficult for them to listen, and they have a quick temper. For Taurans, this is stable, controlled, luxurious. They're focused on having the best life for themselves. They're gonna come off a little stubborn about it. For Geminis, they're talkative, as we know. They're funny, they're exciting. Their focus is always on communication, but in the first house, it's communicating about themselves, which can come off a little self-centered. For Cancers, if they're the ruler of your first house, you're gonna get comfort, sensitivity, emotional intelligence. Their focus is on their own emotional grief, and that can be to the detriment of their own well-being. For Leos, they're engaging, fierce, and commanding. And in the first house, they're going to laser focus on their personal appearance. This is going to draw others into them, but it can leave them feeling unfulfilled. Virgo ruling the first house, folks, give us structure, superior taste, and service-oriented feeling. They are always focused on health. In this house, it's centered around themselves, which leads them to ignoring other aspects of their life. For Libra, they're attractive, creative, and their charming personality bring into balance for themselves. If they have balance with themselves, that can lead to imbalance in their social life. When Scorpio is the ruler of the first house, they're mysterious, they're the deep thinkers, passionate. Well, they're gonna focus on privacy, and that can put up this wall. And when that happens, it can leave them feeling outcasted. For Sagittarians, they're optimistic, adventurous, knowledgeable, and their enlightenment is self-focused on adventure, leaving the people in their life feeling abandoned by them. Capricorns bring their dutiful, honest, and boss energy into working on themselves in this placement, but they come off a little arrogant sometimes because they're focused more on how work reflects on them, making other factors feel secondary in importance. For the hardworking, resourceful, and funny Aquarians, as the first house ruler, they can focus on making themselves unique. And when they do that, it sometimes leads to them feeling misunderstood. If you're a Pisces rising, your enlightenment and compassion and your dreaminess has you focused on keeping your own dreams alive. That could have you lose touch with reality. So in summary, to help you understand better, piece this together, use this following sentence. My self is influenced by fill in your sign. And if you happen to have a point in that house, add focused on and whatever the point is. Next to come is the second house, so stay tuned for that. Cheers.